Let's be honest about something that usually only gets whispered in private moments. Starting over at 60 is not the same as starting over at 30. When you reboot your life at 30, it feels like an adventure. You have time to make mistakes, recover, and pivot 3 more times before you even see a gray hair. But at 60, the horizon looks different. I recently stood at this threshold and I didn't feel the thrill of a blank canvas. I felt the weight of something I never saw coming, an invisible wall.
And if you don't know the 4 specific pressures that make up this wall, you'll keep hitting it until you break. This transition carries a specific kind of heaviness because it's not just about changing what you do. It involves the potential erasure of who you have been. You are carrying 4 decades of professional identity, a reputation you built brick by brick. And suddenly, you are standing in a lobby somewhere, metaphorically or literally, feeling the vulnerability of an intern while holding the wisdom of a CEO. It is a jarring, disorienting conflict. You know you have the answers, but you aren't sure anyone is asking the questions anymore. The fear that grips you isn't just about failure. It's the wondering if you have the energy to build something new from scratch when the foundation you spent a lifetime pouring seems to have vanished. But we need to name the specific realities we are facing. It isn't just age. It's a combination of 4 distinct pressures: social shrinkage, age bias, the ego check of income, and the physical cap on our energy. These are the walls we have to climb. The first reality hit me on a Tuesday morning. I looked at my phone and realized something had changed, something that most of us mistake for a personal failing, but is actually a brutal law of the marketplace. It's a phenomenon I call social shrinkage, and it starts with a silence you aren't prepared for. For years, my phone was a source of constant demand. It rang because I had a title, a budget, or the authority to say yes. Then, almost overnight, that utility evaporated. And when the utility went away, so did the noise. It is a painful, visceral realization to discover that the people you spent 12 hours a day with were not your friends. They were your colleagues. There is a profound difference. Colleagues bond over shared objectives and transactional needs. Friends bond over shared values and genuine connection. When you leave the arena of doing, the colleagues stay in the arena. They have to. They are still playing the game. You are left standing outside the gate, holding a phone that has simply stopped ringing. And this external silence often triggers an internal retreat. We encounter the market's age bias. The statistics tell us 81% of older workers feel overlooked. And instead of fighting it, we validate it. We take that external silence and wrap it around ourselves. I call this the self-imposed invisibility cloak. It is the psychological consequence of the phone stopping. It happens when we walk into a room or a Zoom call and assume we are irrelevant before anyone has even spoken. We assume the younger generation views us as dinosaurs, so we retreat. We sit in the back. We stay mute. We internalize the market's potential rejection as a personal failing. We start to believe that because we don't know the latest slang or the newest project management software, we have nothing to offer. We make ourselves invisible because it feels safer than risking the confirmation that we aren't seen. Here is the shift we need to make. This social shrinkage, it's not a punishment, it is a filtration process. The silence of the phone is actually a gift, though it feels like a curse at first. It is filtering out every relationship in your life that was based on transaction. What is left? The people who love you for who you are, not for what you can do for them. The harsh reality is that your circle is going to get smaller. Much smaller. But the remaining circle is going to be denser with reality. Rebuilding a social life at 60 requires a skill we haven't practiced in decades: intentional vulnerability. You can no longer rely on the forced proximity of the office to provide your social fix. You have to go out and build connections based on being. You have to admit you are lonely. You have to ask for coffee without an agenda. You have to take off the invisibility cloak and risk being seen, not as a powerful executive, but as a human being in transition. It is terrifying, but it is the only way to find the people who are meant to walk this next chapter with you. Now, we have to talk about the one thing everyone tries to avoid: the money. But this isn't about your 401k or your savings. It's about a specific psychological trap that I've seen destroy the confidence of even the most successful CEOs. It's a dynamic that turns a lifetime of wisdom into a liability overnight. For 40 years, most of us have unconsciously tied our self-worth to the number on our paycheck. It was the scorecard. It told us how much the world valued our contribution. When that number drops, and for many of us starting over, it drops precipitously, it triggers a profession loss crisis. It feels like a public statement that you are no longer essential. There is a specific, visceral humiliation in what I call the executive to intern dynamic, or the devaluation shock. You walk into the marketplace offering for decades of high-level strategy, crisis management, and personnel wisdom. You have the scars and the trophies to prove it, but the market looks at you and says, "That's great, but we really just need someone to manage the project software for $25 an hour." It is the moment you realize the market is not paying for your wisdom, it is paying for entry-level execution. If you haven't decoupled your value from your price, this moment will break you. You will sit there, feeling like a failure, because you are earning what you earned in 1995. The mental shift required here is enormous. You have to look in the mirror and say, "My price has changed, but my value has not." You have to accept that the paycheck is no longer a measure of your worth, it is simply a utility bill for your life. It is fuel, not a trophy. And just as we are grappling with this financial limitation, we run headfirst into a physical one. We have to be honest about the energy cap. In our 30s and 40s, the answer to every problem was hustle. If we needed more money, we worked longer hours. If we needed to learn a new skill, we pulled all-nighters. We treated our bodies like infinite machines that just needed a little more caffeine to keep running. At 60, the machine has new rules. I learned this the hard way. I tried to hustle my way out of a transition slump a few months ago. I pushed the same way I did at 35. The mind said go, but the body didn't just say stop, it went on strike. The recovery time wasn't a good night's sleep. It was 3 days of brain fog and physical exhaustion. The hard truth is that I cannot outwork a 25-year-old anymore. I cannot grind my way to success if success requires 16-hour days of high-intensity output. This brings us to the concept of energy economics. At this stage of life, we are not declining, we are becoming specialists. Think of your energy like a very expensive, limited currency. When you were young, you had a surplus of cheap energy. You could waste it on office politics, on tasks that didn't matter, on friction. Now, your energy is premium currency. You have stamina currency, and you cannot afford to waste a single cent of it on low-value tasks. We have to shift from hustle volume to strategic precision. We have to achieve more meaning with fewer, more targeted hours. If I only have 4 hours of high-level creative energy in a day, I cannot spend 3 of them fighting with technology or arguing on social media. I have to spend them on the one thing that moves the needle. This is the intersection of the income drop and the energy drop. The world might pay us less, and our bodies might give us less time, so we must be infinitely smarter about how we spend both. So, where does this leave us? We have a smaller social circle, a bruised ego from the income reset, and a battery that doesn't hold the charge it used to. The old toolkit won't fix this. This brings us to the pivot. We need to stop trying to do more to prove our worth and start being to establish our value. This starts with a radical reframing of our work. So, how do you fund a reinvention when the market is trying to devalue you? There is a specific strategic move, a refueling station, that most people see as a step down, but is actually the only way to buy your freedom. It's a concept that changes your work from a headline into a utility. I call this the bridge job. In the past, we looked for careers that defined us. We wanted the job title to be the headline of our obituary. Now we might need a job that simply funds our being. It is a role, maybe a consulting gig, maybe something totally different like working at a garden center or a nonprofit, that uses a fraction of your skills to provide the financial stability you need without demanding your soul. The mistake we make is thinking that taking a lesser job is a betrayal of our potential. It isn't. It is a purchase of freedom. You are using your skills to buy the time to figure out who you actually are when you aren't. The boss. You are funding your reinvention. This is why starting over at 60 is actually starting within. The harsh realities we have discussed, the bias, the energy limits, the income shock, they are not enemies. They are guardrails. They are forcing you away from the extrinsic game of chasing status and toward the intrinsic game of creating meaning. Think of this friction as a necessary sanding process. It is stripping away the layers of doing that you wrapped yourself in for protection, revealing the essential self that is left behind. And here is the strategic shift. Being is not a consolation prize for people who can't do anymore. It is a competitive advantage. When you operate from a place of being, you stop competing on speed, which you will lose, and start competing on depth, which you will win. Your value in this next chapter does not come from your tasks or your output. The world has plenty of people who can run fast and break things. It is starving for people who can stand still and fix things. This is the power of the elder. While the 30-somethings are reacting to every notification, you have the capacity to remain calm, see the pattern, and offer the one insight that solves the problem. We have to stop looking at this phase as a decline. It is a distillation. When you boil a liquid down, you lose volume, yes, but you increase potency. You are getting rid of the water, the busy work, the fake friends, the ego-driven spending, to get to the essence. The pivot is realizing that you don't need to build a bigger life. You need to build a truer one. You are not losing your capacity. You are concentrating it. So, here is the truth about where we land. The clarity is higher than it has ever been. We realize that the pain of starting over doesn't come from these harsh realities themselves. It comes from resisting them. It comes from trying to force a 60-year-old soul back into a 30-year-old's game. Once you stop fighting the current, you realize the current is taking you exactly where you need to be. The world doesn't need you to be another exhausted hustler trying to prove you are still relevant. It has plenty of those. The world is desperate for elders who actually know who they are. It needs your stability, not your speed. It needs your being, not just your doing. If you are ready to stop fighting the past and start steering the boat toward this new definition of success, you are in the right place. Subscribe to the channel and let's build this second act together. Your next chapter starts right now, my friend.